So, Phil, we've got the Edge of Eternity set. You can find the list of cards we're going to talk about today over on Moxfield. I'm sure we've got a little box for you to click on somewhere or a QR code. But yeah, so let's talk about the cards we've seen from Edge of Eternities that look interesting for Legacy.
Yeah, let's dive right in. I think there are a handful of playables, like legitimate playables, and then there are some that are like on the cuter side. They're powerful enough, but they could probably make it with sufficient intention. I don't think there are any like backbreaking game changers, at least for Legacy. There certainly is for Vintage. We'll get into that as we get through it. But there are some like standouts that I'm excited to talk about, and that I know I'm going to be testing really, really hard in the next coming months leading up to Eternal Weekend.
So we'll start with white. We've got Emergency Eject. It is a 2 and a white instant. Destroy target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a lander token. We might as well explain what lander tokens are. It's an artifact with a 2 and a tap. Sacrifice this token, search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tap, then shuffle. So it's kind of like putting a land into play for your opponent, but they have to pay 2 mana.
Yeah, just ramping growth them for a basic. I bring this up because I have played a lot of this type of effect, like the instant speed 2 and a white, destroy a non-land permanent, they get a thing. This is on the list here because this is just the best variation they've ever printed of it, even though the bottleneck on these types of cards has never been, you know, the 1/1 that they get, or the 3/3 that they get, or you know, whatever the map tokens that they get, or whatever. It's always been the mana cost, like 3 mana to destroy a non-land permanent in every world that we exist in. 3 mana has to like trade in a favorable way, but the problem is like all of these cards are always like the removal spell that then advantages your opponent after the fact, as opposed to every threat that it's removing is just coming in and advantaging the opponent immediately. So the problem with these effects are they really need to cost 2 tops. Like even 2 is mostly unplayable. But because this is the most powerful version we've ever seen of it, where a lander token is the most innocuous of the advantages that have ever been given, I think they could just print 2 and a white, instant speed, destroy target non-land permanent, and it would be maybe playable, like maybe, but probably not still. So I bring this up because it's the most powerful version of the effect. I'm probably going to play it, at least test it, in variations that don't want prismatic ending. For like the blue-white X control decks. Typically, like your prismatic endings make it so that your mana base is so susceptible to wasteland, but you need to have prismatic ending be able to hit 3 and 4 drops in this format in order for that card to be a viable thing that is worth playing in your list. So I'm going to try Emergency Eject as like maybe a split. We'll see. I don't have high hopes for it, but it's worth talking about because it is the best version of this iteration they've ever made.
Okay. Next, this episode of Eternal Durdles is sponsored by CardMill, the first automated scanner and sorter built specifically for trading card game players. With its intentionally compact design, CardMill uses AI-powered recognition to identify each card and sync inventory with real-time pricing, batching up to 300 cards at a time by name, set, color, or type. Collection data is securely stored in the CardMill network, giving players full access to their cards through an easy-to-use web portal. CardMill supports Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Flesh and Blood, Disney Lorcana, Star Wars Unlimited, and many more to come. Created by software engineer and longtime Magic the Gathering player Jonathan Dumanis, CardMill launches on July 22nd on Kickstarter with early bird pricing starting at $350. Backers receive lifetime access to all software updates and new features. Go to cardmill.com to learn more and reserve your path to the future of card sorting. Next up is Stall Inquisitor. It is a 1 mana 2/1. We have a Savannah Alliance. Angel Wizard, that might be relevant. Vigilance. When this creature enters, each opponent exiles a card from their hand and may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. Each spell that casts this way costs 1 more to cast. Each land enters tap.
Yeah, this is first off the cheapest angel we've ever seen. Like the only other 1 mana angel I think is like a 1 mana 1/1 flyer or something, like as like the gimmick of like the small, like the mini world, the mini plane where everything's miniature. But this like so essentially where this I think could slot in is if you needed to pivot to be more like a more aggressive slant while still being disruptive. The downside is that your opponent just gets to choose whatever the worst the easiest thing for them to play around is. So the Punisher mechanics has never worked. Your opponent just getting, this is a Raven's crime, but your opponent just gonna either play, ETB taps on their land on the following turn if they don't need that mana source, or this card isn't necessarily pressuring their life total sufficiently enough. But this card, it's a 1-drop that has some amount of disruption attached to it, and also a clock. Like, it has a lot of the things that you want going for it in a card, like maybe out of the sideboard where you just need to be lower to the ground and like attack the combo decks or what have you. There's also worlds where I was like, if you're proactively on the proactive against oops, this is a world where like sometimes they need all the cards in their hand that like can either give them the kill or give them the kill with protection. And so if you just Ravens crime them on turn 1 with a clock, it's possible that they don't have what they need to go off in the turn cycle fast enough, and so that you can get there on like by disrupting them with white mana, which is a rare occasion. I don't think this is going to be good enough, but it had all of the makings of what seems like a reasonable card to test. And then also has 2 very relevant creature types. Angel because it's my favorite, and then Wizard because it's actually a type that matters. The Jeskai Wizards deck is, always looking for what are the playable wizards in the format.
Yeah.
And this one being something that can slow down to get to a Flame of Venor position is pretty good. So I think that it being a 1-drop wizard is with viable text is a reasonable look. Do I think it'll show up? Probably not. Should it be tested? I think so. Will it be good enough in that testing? I don't think so. But I hope that
time will tell.
I hope you find the way to break it, Zach.
Yeah, I could bring it in off of a Cavern of Souls. Next, consult the star charts. This is an instant with for 1 and a blue. It has kicker 1 and a blue. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of lands you control. Put 1 of those cards into your hand. If this spell is kicked, put 2 of those cards in your hand instead. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any random order. Phil.
So if anybody remembers from, I believe it was the most recent Eldraine set where they had Bargain as a mechanic. There was a card called Farsight Ritual, which was 2 blue. Look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 1 into your hand, or put 2 into your hand, and then you could bargain by sacrificing, fulfilling the bargain cost, and then you looked at the top 8, and so it was just like big dig through time, but it costs 4 mana. This one is a bad anticipate on the front side early, and then essentially a Farsight Ritual on the backside for that is going to be closer to what a stock up does than what
it's like, pretty modular though. Like this is something you could conceivably cast for 4 when you need to, but then you could be like, hey, I don't have the mana for that. I have 3 lands. I'm going to look at the top 3 and take a card.
Yeah, I think that the modular part of this card being 1 in a blue for look for the thing that you need is good as the first mode. The second mode being I need raw resources, and so you can spend 4 to get 2 and like essentially dig.
But what do you think? Impulse doesn't see play in this format. Do you think that this is the bridge for that gap for a 2 mana instant like selection card?
I think if Impulse had kicker that said pick up another card, it's possible that Impulse would be a playable thing. I think the actual most powerful part of this effect is that it abides by the laws of legacy. Like you
Orcish Bowmasters. Yeah.
This card does not get punished by Orcish Bowmasters, and that's like I think that like it's hard to overstate, even though we state it every episode, how influential and more impactful a card's value is if it doesn't get punished by Orcish Bowmaster. Like stock up being what stock up is, where Brain Surge is where Brain Surge is, I think is like wholly a nod to Orcish Bowmaster's existence. Not that stock up is uniquely just individually more powerful than what Brain Surge is. Brain Surge, an absolute unplayable piece of nonsense in an Orcish Bowmaster world. Stock up, awesome. I think consult the sky charts is just going to like fall in line on the stock up side.
Star charts.
What did I say?
Sky charts.
Charts.
We're not on some planet. This is like stars.
It's tough to be like, yeah, this card is very good. This card is not necessarily good on its own. It's good in a world where Orcish Bowmasters otherwise is a constraint on the format. So within that world, which is the world that we're going to be in for the rest of time, I think Consult the Sky Charts is going to be a lot better than it otherwise would be, because it is getting buoyed by that. Like anything that would look into the space, like you have like See the Truth, right? Like, See the Truth is the card where it's like it's a ponder, but it puts it into your hand rather than draw for 2 mana at sorcery speed. And then if you cast it from anywhere other than your hand, you get to put all 3 cards into your hand. Again, not a draw effect, which is like really powerful because the word draw is a drawback these days. And so the fact that Consult the Skycharts can actually go up resources without, quote, drawing cards is really where its inherent value is. I'm going to be on a lot of this. I can see this card being like exactly the type of thing that like my style of Drago control wants to be on. This is like going to be a very potent tool. And I was just recently in the space of testing where I started going back to every card historically that has been reasonable but not quite good enough for in terms of like going up cards, like a card advantage spell or engine of some kind, and being like, okay, well, does this thing abide by the constraints that Orcus Bowmasters applies on the format? And if so, maybe we should give it another nod, because those things, being able to go up raw resources without losing a chunk of your life total, is just so much more valuable. So like I started playing Search for Azcanta again, and I can't tell you how great Search for Azcanta has been. Like, I've been on 2. It has been absolutely stellar. I'm like way closer to like moving up to 3. I want to try a list on our channel where I just like experiment by going the full 4 copies to see like what is the percentage of games that I win where a Search Azcanta is flipped versus where it isn't, despite having like most likely drawing multiples. And because every time I flip a Search for Azcanta, I feel invincible, particularly against the Bowmaster decks. Consult the Skycharts is kind of doing a similar thing, but is recurable with Mystic Sanctuary. So I'm very, very excited for this card. But I also urge like anybody who's looking at this style of card too, to play around Bowmasters, look at previous cards that don't, quote, draw cards. They might be more valuable than they ever really have been, just because Orcus Bowmasters is such a large percentage of the format. So Consult the Skycharts is my pick for best card in the set.
Okay. Finding the right high-end cards for legacy, vintage, pre-modern, or old-school Magic can be challenging. That's where friends 3-for-1 trading come in.
3-for-1 Trading is one of Europe's top Magic the Gathering retailers with an incredible selection of premium singles, sealed product, and even full sets, all available with free, fast, and secure worldwide shipping.
They add fresh inventory every Wednesday with weekly deals and discounts. So whether you're hunting for that elusive piece of power, a legacy staple, or something spicy for your collection, they've got you covered.
First high-end orders over $500 or €500, use the code EDFREE to get free worldwide shipping.
Check them out now at the number 3, the number 4, the number 1.gg/ED. That link takes you right to the shop and helps support the channel.
Huge thanks to 3-for-1 Trading for supporting the Legacy community. Now back to the show.
Okay. Speaking of drawing cards, we've got Cryogen Relic, which is a 1 and a blue artifact. It says when this artifact enters or leaves the battlefield, draw a card. And it's a common, notable. And also, for 1 and a blue, you can sacrifice this artifact, put a stun counter on up to 1 target tapped creature. So I only wanted to mention this card because with Emissary, you're looking at like a 4 mana, draw 4, 4 mana, draw 2 over the course of several turns. Once you get into that like Emissary loop in an 8-cast style deck, I don't know that we're at a point where 8 cast is a thing. But there are a lot of artifacts in this set that I was looking at that like might be able to bring that deck back into vogue. So I wanted to mention Emissary Escort because the enter and leaves clause and the incidental I'll tap your attacker or whatever for the rest of the game might actually be pretty good.
I think Cryogen Relic is also, it's just Ichor Wellspring that has the additional text of being able to lock down a tapped creature for a turn. And like you said, the Emissary loops, of course, because that means that you can, for 4 mana, you draw a card and lock down the same creature every turn, potentially. Like, there are creatures in this format
Draw 2 cards. Draw 2 cards.
Right. 4 mana, draw 2. Yeah. What did I say?
Yeah. You said for 4 mana, you draw a card.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. 4 mana, draw 2 cards, lock down a thing every turn. And there are a bunch of creatures in this format where locking it down is potentially a very good thing.
Yeah.
Of course, this thing is going to get punished by Bowmaster as per usual. But in those same decks, though, it can still lock down a Barrow Goyf. It can lock down a Necrogoyf. It can lock down a Murktide. Like, you have to take a shot from one of those creatures, or at least block it before you can.
Which you can do.
Which you can do before you put the stun counter on it. Like, there's a lot of thick power and toughness in a portion of the Underground Sea decks that this thing can check.
And sadly, it will not hit what's called
Atraxa. The other side of the thing, the other thing that I think is under, not necessarily at the front face of like why it would work in the ACAST style shells and where its value might be for why those decks have never used an Ichor Wellspring before. Aside from the fact that it has a utility value of locking down a creature, it's also blue, and like the tension in those decks is always getting a requisite blue count for your force of will and your force negations out of the board. So having another artifact, another playable artifact that is blue, that's part of your engine is pretty powerful.
Yeah. All right, so next up we have Emissary Escort. That is a 1 and a blue for an artifact creature, robot soldier. This creature gets +X/+0, where X is the greatest mana value among other artifacts you control. Oh, notable artifacts that are big. You've got that all those like 7-mana affinity guys. I forget what they're called.
Thought Monitor and the new flyer. The 3/4 flyer.
Specifically Thought Monitor, of course, but then I was thinking like the 4/4 for 7. I forget what that's called. There's 2 of them. One's banned in Pauper, so they exist as like a thing that you could play, and you just have a 7/4 here. The only thing that I say that I think about this card is like, obviously if it's alone, not that great. If you're playing a deck full of 0 drops, which you tend to be, that's an issue. Go on.
By itself, it's a 2-mana 2/4, right?
No, other
artifacts. Other artifacts.
Yeah, so it's other artifacts. But this is just a card to look at and say, hey, maybe this is a role player. I mean, a 7/4 for 2 mana is not nothing. Is it good enough? I don't know. We still need to see if anyone's experimenting with these decks. We'll find out what Swifty Time or Pew Pew is up to.
Yeah, I think if there's a list that wants to be far more aggressive, like I know there's the 5. What is it? It's the 5-mana 3/4 flyer with affinity, right? So coming in as a 2-mana 5/2, if you get that creature down, and you can, like, if you were to go, play your enabler artifacts, play that 3/4 flyer with affinity for blue, and then turn 2 you can cast Escort, or maybe do it all in the same turn if you just have a dump hand.
You're just going the full stompy plan.
Yeah, I think that like this, it feels like, rather than pair with the like grindier sort of versions of the deck, I think like the Patchwork, Automaton, Stompy style strategies, it's like, okay, well, if we are leaning into that and like Kappa Cannoneers and things of that space, like the beatdown affinity type stuff, that this is another playable blue creature in that can just be thick immediately. It doesn't have
you can just keep getting it back. Like if your opponent can block and kill this thing, you can Emery, bring it back. Like that's and that assumes that like, okay, now between that and the oh god, what the hell is it called? The Thopter that like draws you 2 cards, the other 4 8 cast cards. Like you can just have this giant board where you keep casting your 7 drops, right? And then you have this giant monster coming in to clean up.
Yeah, I think that there's something to be explored there, since there's a bunch of new tools for that type of like really aggressive artifact beatdown type strategy. And Urza Saga is always going to be the backbone of those things. But I think that there is a world where, rather than like leaning harder into the packages of like all of those big creature decks that just want to get in and close the game as fast as possible, typically you see like the Shadow Spear or the Lava Spore Boots is just like a one of within the package of the Urza Saga decks. But I think that if you wanted to play like a really aggressive artifact strategy that can close the door with like a single force backing it up, like if I can just disrupt with a single force, maybe a second one, and have the disruption from Urza Saga, that just being a heavier Lava Spore Boots deck, a 3 to 4 Lava Spore Boots deck, to like be like, okay, I'm going to play this Lava Spore Boots. Now my Emerys are always going to be active the turn that they come in. And also every single one of these threats is just going to chunk you for a ton of your life total. And so like you have to be able to accept that you're going to be pressured immediately, I think is... It essentially like narrows the window with which a player can stop the just getting in the red zone. And so I think that Lava Spore Boots stock goes up the more and more they print these, big Tarmogoyf style artifacts that care about other artifacts. And also what it does too is, back when 8cast was heavily played, meltdowns were everywhere, right? Now red is really only seeing play in the cutter decks, and the cutter decks don't necessarily want to play meltdown for more than 0 to get rid of the the construct tokens. They can't play it for X1. They can't play it for X2 if they have a cutter on the table. They can maneuver around those things though. But I think that like being able to go with Lava Spore Boots, it essentially shuts down those sorcery speed ways to like remove artifacts, because they just get chunked for so much. I think Lava Spore Boots is like the hidden, stocked card with these types of effects, and I'll be interested to see what Pew Pew decides to do with it.
Yep. All right. So on to Quantum Riddler. It is a 5 mana 4/6 with flying for it's a Sphinx for 3 and 2 blue. When this creature enters, draw a card. As long as you have 1 or fewer cards in hand, if you would draw 1 or more cards, draw that many cards +1 instead. It has a warp cost, which allows you to cast it, and then it gets exiled until you cast it again for its full cost for like a turn. You basically keep it in play for a turn. A warp cost of 1 and 1 blue. So Phil, what are you thinking here? Like you cast this thing for its warp cost. It's your second to last card in hand, or like your third to last card in hand, and then you cast Brainstorm and you brainstorm for 4.
Nah, dude, this is like another Beanstalk card. If you don't have Beanstalk on 2, you have this on 2 to cantrip. But then if you do have Beanstalk, you get to warp. This costs 5 mana. So it draws the card off the Beanstalk, and then we'll draw a card when it ETBs.
And also, if you're like, it's going to be rare that you're going to have 1 card in hand with Beanstalk.
But that's not the point with this card. The point is that
if you do end up, if you cast this as your last card in your hand with a Beanstalk out, and you just like get to draw 3, right? Like that's going to feel pretty good.
So I have been saying for a long time that like when you have a Beanstalk out, the most advantageous thing that you can do more often than not is spew. Right? Yeah. Your interactions don't matter. What matters is making interactions. Like if you have a Beanstalk and your opponent doesn't, every interaction is favorable for you. It doesn't matter. Yeah. So like as long as you can actually like just make rectangles happen on their rectangles, then you will win the game because you have this engine that just says you win the game on it. So with Quantum Riddler just being another thing that you can just like cast as more rectangles to put into play. But it means too that like when you were playing Murktide Region, it's like, okay, you have Ponder, Brainstorm, Source to Plowshares. And then in the blue-black or in the Sultai decks, they were playing like Rakshasa's Bargain. And they were playing like if you're leaning really hard into like Leyline Binding, if you're on white still, but otherwise you're on Murktide Regent and you may not have sufficient instants and sorceries really to make it all that gigantic, but it will still draw a card for blue. This for 1 and a blue will draw a card without caring whether or not your graveyard is there. And then when you cast it after it's gone on an adventure, essentially for 3 blue, it will then draw a card off the Beanstalk on trigger. It will then draw a card when it ETBs. Like this is just making favorable exchanges at every turn. This leans harder into getting punished by Bowmaster, but like that's the world that we live in. I think that this card is. I just haven't seen anybody talking about this card in Legacy, and I'm just kind of surprised by it because it's the opportunity cost is okay for 1 and a blue. It'll just draw a card and then goes on an adventure. Now your opponent has to be like, okay, well that's going to matter at some point if the game goes that distance, and presumably you're playing a deck that's trying to get to the point where you would be able to cast this for 5 mana. But like then getting to the position where you are hitting, casting a 4/6 for 5 that's going to draw a card and replace itself. Like it replaces itself twice throughout a game if you cast it. And then potentially draws you more cards after you've like done a huge exchange. Like, and the other side of it too is like when Quantum Riddler is on the board, it's another Protect the Queen. If you just unload trying to protect this thing after your opponent tries to remove this thing, then anything after the fact, it's going to be very good at rebuilding because it's saying, hey, if you're heck bent is what one card or less means. If you're heck bent at any point and then draw a cantrip of any kind, you've now reloaded. So I see this as like Beanstalk redundancy, so to speak.
Yeah. Since you're enjoying the show, please like and subscribe the video. It helps the channel grow.
Support Eternal Dodos on Patreon so we can create even more content and cover events.
Patreon supporters get an ad-free RSS feed. You can even join our deck donation tier to get your very own episode.
Join the Dirtle Maniacs at patreon.com/eternaldurtles. Now back to the show.
All right. Final blue card. Synthesizer Lab Ship is a 1 blue mana artifact spacecraft. It has station. 2 station is tap a creature to activate station, and you get its power in encounters, right?
The station is tap a creature at sorcery speed to apply its power encounters to.
Got it.
I believe it's charge counters.
Charge counters, sure. So if it has 2 or more, at the beginning of combat on your turn, up to 1 other target artifact creature you control becomes an artifact creature with base power of 2/2, gains flying until end turn.
To clarify, it doesn't need to be an artifact creature already. It's just another artifact. Becomes an artifact creature.
Sorry, any other artifact becomes an artifact creature. That's a 2/2 flyer until end turn. Then for 9, this is a 4/4 with flying and haste. So I just looked at this and was like, hey, this seems like another card that might like turn your baubles into tutus, and then later on it's just a 4/4 flyer.
If you aren't interested in attacking with that 2/2, then this thing self-perpetuates its own station. So by turning that artifact, that non-creature artifact into a 2/2, that 2/2 can just tap to station this thing to get it bigger. So like the value is not lost if you can't get in. And then there's going to be like some situations where you're playing against Nether Goyf or whatever, and like being able to fly over while the ground is gummed up is also going to be valuable. Before this thing can become a 4/4 flyer. But it being a single blue mana artifact is, again, like with this blue beatdown artifact, like bigger type thing, it isn't necessarily going to be too difficult. Like when we were talking about the Emissary thing that you brought up, getting to big station is not necessarily going to be all that difficult. And
you might just cast a Emissary Escort, and this thing becomes a 4/4 immediately.
Yeah, and it's like if you think about how like this thing just turns your artifacts. It's similar to Clowncar in that like Clowncar was just impervious to sorcery speed creature removal, because it's a vehicle, so it would just cease to be a creature during your opponent's turn. And this is sort of doing a similar thing where like if you can afford to go down the card, but it's still applying to your artifact count. So like play this on 1, and then if you play like the 3/4 flyer, and then like now all of your stuff that doesn't necessarily have haste yet, if you don't have a Lava Spore Boots, can just like tap to like make this thing big. Like if you have the 3/4 affinity flyer, it's like if you played this on 1, maybe a bunch of artifacts, and then on 2, do this thing, tap it. This thing is now leveled up. Make another artifact, a 2/2, tap that, pump this
Saga tokens.
Like, we're just in a position where you sort of have this already engine going, and then by turn 3, you're potentially attacking like for half a life total in the air. Like that's pretty powerful, given that it's not really asking for anything that you don't already want to do.
An important note as well, Phil. I know I said Saga tokens. I was talking about how they're summoning sick, but if you give a Saga token a base power of 2/2, it gets that +1/+1 that it has as an ability on top of its 2/2,
and it's flies,
right? And it gets flying. So this is actually really good with Urza Saga tokens, because you're basically buffing an Urza Saga token by 2 and giving it flying.
And also, if you think like, assuming you did nothing else, right? You do nothing, and you have an Urza Saga makes constructs. If that's literally all you've done all game, your Urza constructs at a baseline are 3/3s. Like the minimum that Urza Saga can apply to your constructs after it's done its thing over the course of 2 turns is 3/3s. So like that already, one of those, the summoning sick 3/3 tapping turning station on this thing then can pump the other construct after the fact. So like this card is certainly looks good if you're looking to beat down, because it asks nothing other than what the deck would already want to do. You just have to be willing to commit the slot. But again, more blue cards in your blue artifact deck to support your forces to protect everything going on is really like whenever I've tried to build those decks, I always find that the blue counts are the bottleneck, because you need like the baubles and stuff to like make your constructs huge and blah blah blah.
Yeah, maybe we'll try something like this in a gameplay video soon. All right, black for 0 Point Ballad. 0 Point Ballad is 1 black and X for a sorcery. It says destroy all creatures with toughness of X or less. You lose X life. If X is 6 or more, return a creature card from your graveyard into your graveyard this way. Put into your graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control. That last part, flavor text. This card is a cheaper for X2s version of for X1s and X2s. It's like a cheaper version of what's called Toxic Deluge. So I just like, against a deck that's got a lot of 1/1s and stuff like that, like if you're playing its Cradle Control and you just want to like wipe their board, this is an interesting card to like think about as like a sideboard card. Elves, obviously, we don't see anymore, but the decks that just rely on X1 still, there aren't a ton of them. Is also a great way to just wipe away the orc and the token, right? So from there, let's go to green. We have Ice Till Explorer. Ice Till Explorer is a 2/4 Insect Scout for 2 and 2 green. You may play an additional land on each of your turns, and you may play land from the graveyard, from your graveyard. On top of landfall, a land you control enters mill a card. So this kind of self-perpetuates. Now, why would I talk about a 4 mana 2/4? Because this is like it's a slight upgrade, but like obviously costs 1 more than Ramanab Excavator. Being able to play 2 lands might be enough that you might want to play this over Ramen Up Excavator. I'm not sure.
Exploration plus
Crucible.
Crucible of Worlds tacked on the same creature is pretty good. I mean, if you think about like Ramen Up, like
Double Wastelanding somebody sounds dumb.
That's the thing, right? Like the upside of this card, like when this card does its thing, what it does is probably overwhelming enough that your opponent can't come back from it. I think Ramen Up Excavator, it still runs into the thing, like, yes, this is one more mana for Green Sun Zenith purposes, but if you think about, okay, you spend your Ramen Up Excavator, really your Ramen Up Excavator can't even do anything until after it comes down when you have a land drop available anyway, where it's like
Correct,
you can make, like, if it was your turn 4, even with acceleration, or not your turn 4, but you have acceleration, you have 4 mana, but you make your land drop, you cast this thing, it can still then do the thing afterwards. Like, it will still get the value because it can play the additional land drop. So I actually think this is probably better than Ramen Up Excavator for, like, the positions where you're not, like, if you are looking to, like, rebuild on your, like, depth stage, this just puts depth stage into play on the same turn that it comes in, where Ramen Up has to do it over 2 turns. So, like, the exploration part of this card, like, really significantly levels it up. And then also being a 2/4 body, so of course, like everything with 4 power, nothing's susceptible to bolt. That's not nothing. Being a 2/4 in a format that, you know, does have some chunkers on the ground. We were just talking before how, like, you know, Urza Saga constructs come in at minimum 3/3s. There is space where a 2/4 is not totally dead. Like in terms of being a relevant body, but then the exploration effect on this thing is really where it's at. I think like the being able to rebuild both the depth stage package, like you said, double wastelanding somebody. I think like there's probably shenanigans to be had with the mill part of this, where like you're also like turboing the mill to like flip over loams and flip over whatever. Like this thing seems like it has all of the things that those types of strategies would like to have. It's similar. Like I know that we haven't seen Sylvan Library or its ilk in a while, but like I think that there's also room to really abuse the Millicard part of this thing in some ways. Like, I don't exactly know what that is because the first 2 effects are so powerful, but like it's a non-mitigated non-mana-gated way to accrue advantage.
Yeah, that last line of text is gravy. Like, that's just extra, like, that's icing on the cake. Like, it's already great. And this is making it that much better.
Let's say you don't have let's say you don't have the stuff that you're looking for, and so like typically like loam decks, they'll like dredge the loam looking for whatever they're looking for so they can pick it up with loam again, right? If you think like, oh, okay, well this thing is sort of doing a very similar effect to that, because if you go Ice Still Explorer, okay, fetch land Millicard, crack, get my land Millicard, like you are now digging pretty deep for things that this thing will be able to regrow out of your graveyard. So, like, by itself, this thing might be able to find answers, combos, and then actually regrow them, all without asking for anything other than being in play after the fact. Like, you don't have to pay mana for them. You know, like, Life in the Loam, it's like, yeah, you can flip it, but then you have to pay 2 mana every turn in order to, like, get the cards back and then do the thing, and you need all these composite pieces together. This is just sort of taking all of the composite pieces of that deck, putting it on, you know, its companion, and then saying, here you go. Like, this thing seems like just like in the lab for the person at WotC's that plays, you know, loam decks.
Yeah. All right. Next up, pretty straightforward card. Cosmo Goyf is a Tarmogoyf for exiled cards, right? It's a black and a green for a X and a +1X creature. This creature's power is equal to the number of cards you own in exile, and its toughness equal to that +1.
So I don't think this is very good, but I think it's also the first. I remember when it first spoiled, I think I said it in our chat where I was like, this is the first time I feel like WotC didn't just casually throw on like a bunch of French vanilla combat abilities that make it otherwise unblockable trample, or whatever. Yeah.
Vigilance.
Just like, it's like, oh, just give it menace, because why not? Nothing can ever, like, blocking as a mechanic, who would ever want to do that? It's the first time that I feel like they haven't really, like, this just jumped out to me as like the thing that they would just throw on, like, you know, 5 different French vanilla things on top of, just to say like whatever, but they didn't. So like, you know, thumbs up on WotC for showing, I guess, restraint. I was thinking, it's like, okay, if you're the graveyard based strategy and then your opponent brings in Leyline of the Void, and then you're like, all right, cast Cosmo Goyf, and now you just have like this thick beater, and then every time you cast a card, it just grows the Goyf.
Yeah.
Because it cares about cards,
exiled cards you own,
but it only cares about just cards. Like, you know, it being any amount of cards, just like this thing can get very big as a pivot strategy against that. I don't know. I see this as like a sideboard card if your opponent brings in their graveyard hate.
There's talk also of like people playing Serum Powder
Serum powder,
and just being like my first turn at like a 15/15 or something like that.
This is also in Sultai. You have with your Murktides that are exiling your yard.
Yep.
People like you have your own Nile spell bombs, and you can just like use it as a big combat trick and exile your yard. And
Not
make
to
this
mention
thing
Force
huge.
of Wills and
stuff.
Force of Vigors, all that stuff, pitch cards. All right. Next up is Pinnacle Emissary. This is a 3/3 for 1, a blue, and a red. It is an artifact creature robot. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 drone artifact that has flying with this can only block creatures with flying. It has a warp cost of an Izzet mana, a blue or a red.
So when I saw this card, I really like, is the card powerful? Yeah, obviously, for all of the things that you're already thinking about. We don't need to explain them to you. I wanted to bring it up because I think this is an example of like WotC doing everything incorrectly. Like,
okay,
when you print this warp cost with this effect, right? What is the play pattern that you assume happens? Like, what is the incentive for this effect? Right? Hey, do this on turn 1, and then what is the optimal thing you can do? Fill your deck with a bunch of zeros and fucking goldfish it.
Just spit it out.
Like, you want this, a mana source, and then as many zeros as you can to essentially empty the warrens on your opponent for no value lost. This thing goes into exile, and then you just cast it again with all the 0 mana artifacts that you just put into play, or you just do it next turn. Like, I just don't know what else this does other than that. And that's it. And it's like incentivizing that kind of gameplay just seems so dumb. Like, why? Who wants that? Who wants like, oh, did you open the hand with the singleton Pinnacle Emissary and then a bunch of zeros, and now like you just have 5 flyers on the table to me before I take a game action, like, or vice versa? Like, that just seems horrendous in terms of like the experience you're trying to generate. Like, I don't get what the goal of this card is, because what else could they possibly think is the target for this card? Nobody's doing like, I'll cast one artifact and get like my extra kicker 1/1 on top of it. Nobody's doing that.
I'll pay 4 mana for an artifact and get a 1/1.
That's just not the world that like anybody lives in. Like, if you're thinking like in literally any format, like it's like, oh, in Modern right now, where it's like the best decks are all like your Mox Opal, Mox Amber, Emery Tameo decks, and it's like, okay, yeah, how about you guys just get this 1 mana empty the warrens that doesn't cost you the card, that like only further incentivizes playing 0 mana things in your deck. Like, I just think it incentivizes all of the things that they keep saying are wrong with their designs. So I don't get what the goal of this card is. It's the most tilting card to me because I just don't get the logic behind it. Like, why do this? You've said that this is bad and that you're still doing it. Like, there no other experience will be generated from this card. It's just so infuriating that they do this thing. Like, I don't get it. I just don't get their thought process.
Okay, well, next up is Nutrient Block. We have a 1 mana artifact that is indestructible. It says it's a food, so of course you can sacrifice it by paying 2 mana and you gain 3 life. And when this artifact is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you draw a card. It's a 1 mana artifact, Phil. We got to talk about it.
It's a 1 mana artifact that has, when all the sacrifice shenanigans. I was thinking, like, is this the thing that, like, goes and breaks Pauper again? Is like the 1 mana artifact that they sacrificed all the sacrifice artifact stuff that draws a card, and then, they can.
I think that's the blue one.
Pull it out, like. Yeah, just like, just.
I'm sure there's one for every color. I didn't actually look, but the blue one looked like the best one.
Booning a bunch of the Pauper decks, I think, is the thing with this. I mean, there's also, I forget what it was, but like, an indestructible artifact that, has the thing where like there are some effects where it's like destroy an artifact and then do a thing. And this being indestructible means that like you just always have your enabler on the table. Good enough? Probably not. 1 mana artifact in Urza Saga making it maybe? Sure.
I mean, you're always asking to tack life gain onto a draw spell. Here you go.
Oh, there's been plenty of artifacts that do it. I literally want it on like a playable instant speed spell.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm going to point out the other 1 mana artifact that's worth looking at here. Tharmaton Torpedo. That is a 1 mana artifact that says for 6 mana, tap this artifact, destroy target non-land permanent. This ability costs 3 less to activate if you attacked with a spacecraft this turn. Phil, 6 mana is a lot to do Vindicate from.
Yep.
And not for nothing, but a deck like 8-Cast can generate that much mana. But more importantly, we just talked about a spaceship in that deck. So I think this card could be a playable one of, and being able to just recur that with Emery every turn for like 4 mana, just vindicate. I think this card might be playable if that's the thing that the deck wants to do.
Yeah, I think this card is tied to that station card that we talked about earlier. I forgot his name already, but the 1-mana one.
Synthesizer lab.
Cool.
Chip.
Yeah. Sweet. Yeah, I think it is tied to that. It is tied to 2 cards. It's tied to the playability of that card, and then also it's tied to Urza Saga's existence.
Yeah, I agree. Yes. Okay, let's talk about the Planeswalker from this set. Tesseract Cool Captain. For 3 mana, you get a legendary Planeswalker, Tesseret, with 4 loyalty. Whenever an artifact whenever an artifact you control enters, add a loyalty counter to Tesseret. He has a 0, which is untap target artifact or creature. If it's an artifact creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it. -3 is search a library for an artifact with a converted mana cost of 1 or less. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And then -7 is you get an emblem with at the beginning of your turn, put 3 +1/+1 counters on target artifact you control. Then it becomes a robot artifact creature. Phil, I think an important thing to note on the -3 here is its CMC is 1. That means you can go get something like Synthesizer lab ship, or all those 1 mana artifacts that people think that they can get with Urza Saga, but it's like, no, that's got a pip. You can't get that. This can do that.
Yeah, I think that this card, I mean, for sure, like the obvious place where even WotC called it out. They were like, hey, we're just going to print something that's obviously going to be busted in Vintage. When they were talking about, like, should we have gone after Lurrus in this ban announcement? We don't think so, because we're printing a thing that is obviously going to be great in this format. In a way that, like, I find to be sort of inelegant to do it like that. Be like, we're not taking action. We just printed a thing we know is going to be busted.
Guys, buy these cards.
It's just, It's just like, hey, wink, wink, not. We know we just did a busted thing. But yeah, this card in Vintage at least is going to make it so that all of the restricted cards that they've restricted, like Chalice, like Vexing Bauble, it's like, well now,
Sure.
And then with Urza Saga, when they restricted that card, they were like, if we restricted, just the Vexing Bauble, then you would still have access to, 5 Vexing Baubles in your deck because everybody plays Urza Saga. So we're restricting that too. Well, this card just makes it so now that every deck that has the Vexing Bauble and the Chalice now just has access to Chalice and Vexing Bauble.
Find it.
So
yeah.
That makes me think that, like, going into Eternal Weekend, you have to, like, you have to assume that any of the decks that are playing Chalice and Vexing Bauble, which are all of them, will also have access to all of them always. So you need to have more ways to prepare for those types of cards, which makes me think something like, the prismatic endings of the world in that format, or the portable holes that show up, like, those cards are going to get increasingly more necessary because you're just going to run into the stuff that otherwise locks you out a lot higher percentage of the time, because Tesseract Cool Captain is just going to be around.
Phil, have we ever seen a Planeswalker hit the BNR?
Yeah, Oko has been banned. Red and 6 has been banned.
Oko,
okay,
I take it all back. Yeah.
Planeswalkers shouldn't exist. They suck.
I'm just thinking, like, would this be a card that, like, they see, oh god, like, everyone's running 4 of these in every deck because they can, right?
Oh yeah,
maybe we should ban this.
Like, certainly, like, Tesseret could be. I mean, it's 3 mana, but it's 3 colorless mana, so, like, it's not. Yeah. Everybody has the fast mana. Like, this will be.
You can't run it in Lurrus.
This will be
right?
the concession is, if you want to play this, then you don't play Lurrus. But then, like, what this does is it also means that, like, you have access to, like, infinite, like, games are going to end a lot faster with Tesseret because it only asks for colorless mana, and then, like, you just get half a vault key faster. You get your lock pieces a lot faster. You can do that all in the same turn. Like, it's going to lead to a lot more gold fishing, and you're just going to need to be able to stop this on the stack. And then it being a win condition on the back end is like, and like trying to remove this thing in combat, it's like you're not really going to do that. Like, this thing is always going to have a ton of loyalty on it because of all the artifacts that it can pick up. Like, it can also tutor Synthesizer Vining Top in that format, and then you can always spin the top to just, like, put more loyalty onto it every draw step. Like, spin the top to draw the top in your upkeep. So I think that, like, this is obviously going to do a lot of work in Vintage. It's just, like, sort of specifically hit for that format. I don't know if that's what WotC's intention was, thinking, like, hey, let's do something that way we don't have to touch Lurrus, or at least contend with Lurrus. I think that if they wanted to do that, they probably could have unbanned Monastery Mentor, or unrestricted Monastery Mentor, rather, to give a little bit more incentive. Sure. But, like, that means that only matters if you're playing white.
Do people even want to play Monastery Mentor anymore? I don't think they do.
They don't. But I'm saying that, like, it is restricted in that format, and it's sort of laughable at this point that it is. Like, it is very good, of course, but, like, it is 3 mana, and it's like you're never going to pick Monastery Mentor over Lurrus. Like, that just isn't the world that we're ever going to be in. But, like, Tesseract Cool Captain is actually powerful enough, I think, to be like, should we or should we not with Lurrus? I think, like, if you're Lurising, you still want to be in like the Psychic Frog, Orcus Bowmaster space. Whereas like if you move into Tesseract Cool Captain, like you're certainly on Time Vault, you're certainly on a bunch of the restricted artifacts that you otherwise weren't necessarily before. Like being able to go like turn one mana crypt, cast Tesseret, minus it, get Chalice, play Chalice on 0, and then so your opponent like can't then dump any of their mana, their Moxen into play on their turn 1. Like that's not an unreasonable thing to have happen. Land, mana crypt, Mox, cast this, get the Chalice, cast the Chalice on 0 or Chalice for 1, like same thing. So like there's just like not a lot asked for this card to just be very good with the restricted cards that make non-games. And so in order to then contend against that, people are just going to have to play more of the things that cost mana to remove Chalice and Vexing Bubble than they otherwise were before. Like what I was thinking about doing at Eternal Weekend is very much different now that Tez is coming out. Not only am I interested in being like one of the players that are playing Tesseret, of course, but also like I want to have more ways to stop the things that Tesseret will definitely get. And the space that I am looking at is just like more prismatic endings, because prismatic ending, unlike Portable Call, can both remove either of the lock piece artifacts that I fear that Tesseret can get, but then also the Tesseret itself. So I think prismatic ending sort of will go up in stock in that format, and it's a lot easier to get prismatic ending to higher CMCs just because you already have the Moxen. Like in your deck naturally, without actually having to touch your mana base too hard, you have access to off colors like that you wouldn't, like your splash colors, to make prismatic ending better. The downside is that it's sorcery speed, sure, but the fact that it can deal with all of the things that you need, and you can do it at multiple colors, and you can do it ahead of schedule because you have the Moxen. So I think Tesseret's an absolute slam dunk. Obviously, it's great. The now tricky thing, Zach, is where does this show up in Legacy? Because it certainly will, right?
I don't know, man. I'm like, what decks have artifact creatures that want to go grab 1-drops, that want to create like only 8 cast, which again, cool. We've maybe gotten some tools for it, but really not a deck right now. So I don't know. I don't know if this will see play in this format, but as our Lord and Savior Nathan Golia has said before, never sleep on a 3-mana Planeswalker.
Never sleep on a 3-mana Planeswalker, but also, like, what are the, like, in a similar way that Urza Saga made it so that you always have to look at every 1 and 0 artifact, now it's like, okay, well, this thing can get colored artifacts, this thing can get the X artifacts, like, is Chalice of the Void, like, just back, is the stock back up, I like the fact that this can come down on turn 1 in every Ancient Tomb deck. It's like, okay, well, this can now fix your mana after the fact because it can get the Mox Opals of the world. But Nate literally just texted us and said, "Guys, I'm going to play Cosmo Goyf." So we should have had him on. we should have had him on. I'm literally looking at the text. He said it defeated my resolve for like how terrible Legacy is right now. He's like,
He's back, baby.
He's back. We got him back, everybody. Finally, Watsy is their cynicism is working, right?
They're doing it. They're doing it.
We have to just print power cut versions of previous things.
Desperate research naming Berserk got me.
Oh man, this is great, Nate. Okay. What timing, bro? We got to have you on to just to talk about your Cosmo Goyf build. Anyway, Tesseract Cool Captain is obviously a slam dunk. I don't know what its price tag. Looking at this, is pre-selling for $60. I don't think it's going to stay that high, but it's definitely going to be a slam dunk in all the Eternal formats. I think in Modern too, like, this thing strikes me as something really another powerful thing for the Hammer decks. Like, between getting Cloud in the previous set and now getting this guy, like, I mean, the Hammer's been getting some tools in that format, so I think this will boon that a bit. But there's also, I'm certainly like, I get that this doesn't get Thopter Sword or anything like that, but I'm sure there has to be some cool artifact synergy combo decks or whatever that we're not thinking of just because we've been living in an Urza Saga world for so long, and that has made it so that we've sort of only pigeonholed ourselves into thinking about what are the 0 and 1 mana artifacts as opposed to colored artifacts or X-Spell artifacts. Like, I think that there is going to be room that we have not thought about with Tesseret beyond like this surface level stuff. I am intrigued by it. I mean, when I play Vintage, I want to be able to play my 4 tops. So like whenever I get to play Vintage, my caveat is like, what is the decks that I can play that have 4 top in it? And Tesseret just making it so I can play even more tops, and then more win conditions with those tops, and like solve for tops, and it's like it fills me with delight. And then hey man, like, this will be cool. Like, let's see if Tesseret can actually like make a dent in Luris's stranglehold on meta share percentages.
17 minutes on the Magic the Gathering version of Khan from Star Trek.
Yeah.
All right, next up. Next up, we have the Endstone. This is a 7-mana legendary artifact. Whenever you play a land, cast a spell, draw a card. At the beginning of your end step, your life total becomes half your starting life total rounded up. The only deck that I can see this wanting to be played in is like the like Urza's decks that get that play like planar whatever, planar gate.
Yep.
Is that the name of the card? I kind of forget.
Who knows?
I don't know. I'm not seeing this card as being like amazing or anything. It just, this is a value card that deck might want.
It doesn't affect the board, so I don't know if it's gonna see play. There's just like more powerful things to do.
Yeah.
I mean, at the beginning of your end step, your life total becomes half your starting life total, rounded up. That can also affect you negatively if you're at a higher than your half life total. So it's not like if your life total is less than half your starting life total, it becomes so.
Yeah. This feels like a card that's probably super good in Modern and maybe not super good in Legacy.
If you can cheat this into play, I think the thing is like it has landfall or it's landfall, draw a card, and storm, draw a card.
Vintage Tinker Endstone.
Like if you put this into play, like I imagine what really happens is you draw your library. Like it's a colorless way to make it so that every spell you cast draws a card. That's a really powerful effect. That is probably where this thing is busted. So like maybe in maybe this is played in like the Lion's Eye Diamond Echo decks or something like that, where it's just
or maybe even like the decks that like this might be a card that the what's it called decks want Mystic Forge style decks want as like a one of.
Yeah, it's I guess
like, I put it into play. Now I'm mana positive on all my stuff. I keep drawing. And there you go.
Yeah, it's like I can't think that this is anything that Karn would ever want to get, because if you're using this with Karn, you're probably just getting a lattice and locking your opponent out.
Yeah,
but I think this is certainly a combo card. Like at the beginning of your end step, your life total becomes half your life total. I could argue that might be like the actual trap of like really what that is flavor text, because if this touches the board, the game ends because you draw your library. So
All right. Next up, we have the Eternity Elevator for 5 mana. It is an artifact spaceship, legendary artifact spaceship. It taps for 3 mana. It has station. What is it? Station plus 20 is adding mana equal to the number of charge counters on this thing. I just read the X and was like, whoa, that's a lot of mana. But then I just realized that like, who's gonna do this? I don't see anybody actually spending 5 mana to make 3 mana, and never tapping 20 power worth of stuff to make this produce a bunch of mana. So moving on, the one land that I thought was kind of interesting here was Adagia Windswept Bastion. This is the land planet that comes into play tapped and it makes 1 white mana station, and its 12 station is to create a token that's a copy of an artifact or an enchantment you control, except it's legendary. Activate only as a sorcery. And the only thing I can really see this for is like maybe an Enchantress deck wants this as like another copy of something. I'm not sure. This was the only one that looked at all interesting as far as these lands were concerned. And 12 power is a lot of power to sacrifice for whatever that is.
The median turn for games to ostensibly end in this format is 1.75. So
yeah.
I think that anything that is asking for station that isn't then applying pressure almost immediately, the spacecraft that you brought up, it costs 1 and then does something to self-perpetuate itself, and is also like got a potential home shell already built. The planets in a wasteland format absolutely do not. Like come into play tapped, susceptible to wasteland, have to invest a ton of shit. Then even to get the copy of the thing, you have to 3 white tap this, so that's 5 mana just to get a copy of something that you have already cast and is in play. Like there's like, not saying that this one is the best or worst of any of the 5. I'm saying all 5. Like the blue one is Tolarian Academy, and that's not it. Like you could put that in your deck with all the constructs and whatever to likely get there, and I still don't think it's close.
Yeah. All right. Well, so that is all of the cards that we saw from this set that were something we could look at. But I did want to bring up this set has a bunch of special treatment cards. So Phil, I want to play a game with you. that is basically you've probably been to the eye doctor before when they go 1 or 2, 1 or 2. So what do you think? Which version of Dust Bowl do you like better? This version or this version? Again, this version or this version?
I like not that one. That one. Of these two, what you really should be doing is playing the original, the OG
well,
art, of course, obviously.
I just like that they're reprinting. Like, the beautiful thing about pre-modern is that you can play any version of cards, right? And then you're getting these cool looking reprints that, like, hey, like you know, if you open one of these up, you can like slip it into a pre-modern deck. I think Dust Bowl goes for like $20. Like OG Dust Bowl goes for like $20 now.
Yeah.
So like having access to these is like a whoops, I opened it, cool, is not the worst thing in the world. And the art on these is pretty sweet.
Always happy to have reprints make it so that the barrier to entry for people into any format is less and less financial load. Like, excellent. Like, that's awesome. Of the two,
same question.
Of the two,
okay,
I like the right Dust Bowl more, just because it looks like it's destroying land. Where I get that the
one that's up on the screen right now.
Yeah, I get that the other one, it literally has a planet with a hole being blown through it. But I'm also, having played this game long enough, I also have like a Chaos Orb mind where if there's ever a circle with like lava coming out of it, I assume that that's the threat, not the thing being destroyed. So like, I look at that thing and like the other version, I look at that and just see like Chaos Orb on its side, you know? So
Chaos. This Chaos Orb has been Dust Bowled for some reason.
Yeah.
All right, same question, Phil. Same question. Reflecting Pool.
Wait, which one do you like more?
Oh, I actually like the planet one more.
Okay, yeah.
I'm a fan of Chaos Orb. I like the planet one. So same question. Although I have to say that this version right here, is super cool. It has a very pulp feel, like a pulp space guy feel, like John Carter from Mars or like Carson of Venus kind of thing. I've been reading the both of those series lately, so this has that like feel to me, and I dig that. All right, same question. We've got Reflecting Pool, another staple in pre-modern. So you've got this little like moon Earth kind of dealio here, or you've got this again like this pulp a look.
I'm apparently a fan of the pulp, dude. I think the pulp one's way better.
Yeah, I think I think I kind of have to agree with you on this one. I like this one better if I were to choose Reflecting Pools. And again, Reflecting Pool is like a like $20 or $30 card, the OGs. So this is a card worth worth picking up if you can find them, assuming that they're of the right price. This one says it's $49. This one says it's $29. Let's see what it actually costs right now. There's a Battle for Baldur's Gate version and a conspiracy version. Let's see what those cost.
One is foil right now, so you got to change that.
We'll change that up. Oh no, it only comes in foil.
Oh, it only comes foil. That's why. Okay.
Sadly, it only comes in foil. So that one's $8, and the other one is $8. So you can get them cheaper, but these look like garbage compared to the ones that we just showed you. So for my druthers, I like the OG, but if you can get these, the other two that we just showed you, they're pretty spiffy in my personal opinion. I kind of dig them.
All right, Zach, before we wrap it up here, what is your pick of the set? I get that Tesseret is probably the most powerful card, but I'm picking Consult the Star Charts.
I'm going with Synthesizer Space Lab, Phil. I want to get weird. I want to get weird with it. I think that card is it's also good with Tesseret.
What card?
It can be gotten by Tesseret.
It can be Tesseret. It can be gotten by. What do you think? So that's our top pick of the set. What do you think is the card that is going to actually surprise us? Like, what's the card that we talked about or didn't talk about that you're like, yep, that's the sleeper?
I think that the card that we've talked about that I think is gonna be a card that like I don't think is good, but we'll probably see some amount of play and be like a role player in decks, is probably the Stall Inquisitor, the Savannah Lion Angel Wizard. That card will probably like end up being like way better than I think it is, and I'll be pissed about it.
And I think Quantum Riddler is going to be
Quantum Riddler. I can see that.
I think Quantum
for sure.
Riddler, like if you just think about operationally how you're playing that card, similar to if you think about it like in the Beanstalk space, Beanstalk is an engine, so it's better. But when Beanstalk comes in, it draws the card, but then also stays on the table as an engine. Similarly, this thing, you pay 1 in a blue, so it's in better color, but you draw the card and then it goes into exile. So like it really is 2 mana draw 2. Granted, like the card that you drew is a 5 mana 4/6 that replaces itself again, and then has a then Tacit ability on it. But if you think like, okay, this card is 3 cards, the same way that like Questing Druid is 3 cards on a card, this is 3 cards on a card. Warp, draw a card into exile. When you cast it again, it is itself a card and then also replaces itself again as the card. So like your 1 mana, your 1 card, 3 cards is provable, and then if you put it with Beanstalk or anything else, now you just have like again like just furthering the
everything else is gravy.
Everything else is gravy strategy. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for all for watching, and we will catch you on the flip. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button.
You can also support us on patreon.com/EternalDurdles, which now offers the new Deck Donation tier.
During July, the Deck Donation patrons will get a 2-for-1 special where both Phil and I will run your deck through a league.
I'll play literally whatever you want.
So brew your spiciest or stock us up with a stock list.
I'll literally play whatever you want.
Thanks for watching.